The Maple Leafs bring back a familiar face, and it's time for a way too early Maple Leafs bold prediction. Those are coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Thank you very much to Nathan Lucas. Thank you very much to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Took both those guys to hit a home run tonight at Coors Field, and they both cashed. Oh, yeah. Felt good about it. Felt real good about it. So, again, you feeling good about the Jays, or you want to wait until the hockey season, you can go place your wagers and use FanDuel to do so. If your first $5 bet wins, we get $150 in bonus bets. Every now and then I'll take a look, too, at the novelty section of FanDuel and see, all right, what's some fun bets out there that we could place. And currently, Dave, there is a player special. It is for the Edmonton Oilers starting goaltender for Game 1 of the season next year. Who do you think is the front runner?
Who do I think?
Yes.
Calvin Pickard.
No, it is Stu Skinner.
It is Stu Skinner?
It is Stu Skinner.
It's not surprising, but I wanted to be a little different.
And then the field is second. Calvin Pickard is third. So There's not a whole lot of love for Calvin Pickard. But the fifth shortest odds to be the Game 1 starter for the Edmonton Oilers, Joseph Woll. Joseph Woll is currently has the fifth lowest or highest odds to be the Game 1 starter for the Edmonton Oilers at it's very long. It's 10,000 to 1. Or 100 to 1, sorry, plus 10,000. So 100 to 1 odds for Joseph Woll to be the number one goaltender, the starter for Edmonton Game 1. But I did find it kind of funny how he's there. He's in the top 5 in the mix, according to FanDuel and the betting markets, to be that guy. Which is interesting because we had talked about this earlier in the summer, how could the Leafs deal from the position of strength and deal away a goaltender for some forwards, some scoring help to try and alleviate the loss of Mitch Marner. Ultimately, I think they did obviously decide they did not want to do that, and they ended up kind of, finding a way to fill Marner's shoes, a cheaper way of doing it with 3 guys as opposed to 1 dude. So they brought in a Michelli, they brought in Nicolas Waugh, Dakota Joshua will definitely add in some of that offense. So yeah, it's funny how quickly that trading a goaltender conversation really went away. Because when I saw it, I'm like, there's no shot that they're going to trade Joseph Woll. But a couple months ago, that was a conversation.
Mm-hmm. No, it was a conversation, and it's just because you look at teams generally don't have what the Leafs have in terms of their goaltending, right? The 1-2 punch. It's mostly those who don't have that elite guy, right? If you don't have an elite starter, you're going with, kind of a by committee approach, or you do what Vancouver's done and you just buy all the goaltenders and pay all the goaltenders all your cap, right?
Yeah, they did do that. They did definitely do that, and then traded away one of their better goaltenders.
Yeah, the one that the MVP of the Calder Cup.
Yeah, they were like, nah, we don't need that young, cheap goalie. Let's sign an often injured Demko, keep him around, sign him long term. Oh, Kevin Lankinen has a random kind of one-hit wonder kind of year. Yeah, let's give him $4.5 million for the next few seasons. Yeah, it's an odd choice. What Vancouver's gotten net there is definitely an odd choice. I'll take Toronto's situation over that any day of the week. But I probably would take, though, Demko and Lankinen over Pickard and Skinner. I'd say at least Vancouver's got a better goaltending situation than Edmonton does.
Oh,
but But Toronto's in good shape. They're in real good shape when it comes to their goaltenders. And you look at what Anthony Stolarz was able to do in his first year as a Maple Leaf, and it was pretty darn solid. Like he legitimately nearly led the league in save percentage. He technically did lead the league in save percentage in the playoffs prior to getting hurt. Some people looked at his injury as kind of the turning point in that series as well. And Joseph Woll is a good goaltender. He is a very technically sound goalie. He's big in net. He's calm. The Leafs are in good shape in net, and it's so funny because when have we been able to say that? Like never. Yeah. Honestly, like in the Cap era, we have not been able to say that the Leafs are fully set in net, not with one but two good goaltenders.
No, right? We had a hard time anointing one guy as the starter, right? Like really none since like Frederik Andersen when he was like we knew Freddie was a starter. It faltered near the end.
That was it. Yeah. Like think back, like we just went through our top 25 Maple Leafs the last 25 years. We went 3 goalies on the list. Like we had Ed Belfour, Curtis Joseph, and then Freddie Andersen. Like since like that's all post lockout, Cap era. One goalie made our list. That goes to show how terrible these teams have been over the last, these Maple Leafs have been over the last 20 years. And a big part of that is because they couldn't find a goalie. Now they've got a couple. Now they've got 2. And I'm glad that they decided to hang on to both and keep the tandem going, because I think that's, in the modern NHL, I think you kind of need that. And now that also heading forward into the next CBA, once they get to 84 games, it's 2 extra games. Probably going to want another goaltender to play those extra 2 games. Mm-hmm. So we already kind of know that once a goalie starts to, get into 50, 55 and over, their play starts to deteriorate. So, with 2 extra games coming up on the sched, you're probably going to want that other goalie to play those ones. And having 2 goalies will give you a much better chance moving forward at picking up some dubs. All right, a couple things that we're going to get to in today's show. On the other side, the Maple Leafs made a signing, re-signing, whatever you want to call it. This guy looks just like Mitch Marner. I'm going to show you a picture. And you would think if you didn't see the headline, you would think you just saw the photo that they signed Marner to a contract. So we'll tell you all about that, what that's about. And way too early Maple Leafs predictions for 2025-26. We're going to get to a couple of those, and that's all coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing the game on a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like a part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5. You'll get $150 in bonus bet if that first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti, with you here on a Wednesday, as we are each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here throughout the summers of the Locked On Leafs podcast. And then, once we get back into the swing of things, when spring training, I guess not spring training, it is training camp in the fall, comes back, we'll be back to 5 days a week as well. So as the boys get back on the ice, we'll get back to a regularly scheduled 5-day-a-week show. But we're still here providing content and let you know the latest in Leafland on a daily basis. And the latest today, the Maple Leafs making a signing. They bring back defensive prospect William Villeneuve, or as other people are calling him, Mitch Marner's doppelganger. Did you see the photo that they posted when they announced that they were bringing back Villeneuve and that they had signed him to? It's a 1-year deal, 2-way contract. It's nothing too crazy, obviously a league minimum type of deal. But man, does this guy ever look like Mitch Marner? I never realized it until now.
Yeah, I didn't initially, like, I saw all these times. I was like, okay, that's solid. Bringing him back, and kind of expected it, right? RFA and all that. I was seeing all this like chatter about Marner. I'm like, oh, what happened now? And then I'm like, because I didn't see the photo that the Lisa put out. I got the press release in my email, and I'm like, what? Wait, what photo did they use? And then I saw like a bunch of people just comment.
You got the photo? You got it?
I got the photo. I'm throwing it up right now.
Like, what? That's Mitch Marner. That's Mitch Marner. They're making the same mouth like gesture and everything.
I've seen photos of. I thought the Leafs made a mistake.
This is photoshopped. I'm telling you. I
thought, was this a bad like jersey swap? Like, did the Leafs social media person have like serious like with Mitch Marner withdrawal that they need to get a photo of Mitch Marner on the socials? Like, this is just.
It's uncanny. They literally look like they could be twins. William Villeneuve is Mitch Marner's doppelganger.
Literally.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man meme. It's like, wait a second. You look like me. No, you look like me. I do look like you. Yeah, you look like me. It's wild. Wild how much these two guys look alike. So they couldn't bring Marner back. They couldn't figure out a contract for him, but they did bring his lookalike back in William Villeneuve, and that should make people happy.
My favorite comment going through the comments was Timu Marner. William Villeneuve was the Timu Marner, and I'm like, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good comparable. But like, yeah, I it's just crazy. Now, like, I was trying to look at other photos of Villeneuve, and like, there's like obviously photos of him without the helmet on that. It's just like, okay, I know this guy's not Mitch Marner at all. And then you see photos of him playing, and it's just like, does he like change his appearance in some way? Like, is he like trying to rock a similar, like, I want to look like Mitch Marner on the ice? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. You put a bucket on him and a blue jersey, and all of a sudden the guy looks like Mitch Marner. I don't know what to tell you. But the signing itself isn't necessarily noteworthy. Like, I'm not sure William Villeneuve will be a fixture on this team. He's probably more like the 9th, 10th defenseman on the depth chart. Like, there'll be a few guys who will get the call up over William Villeneuve, but he is a drafted and developed guy for the Maple Leafs. Like, he's someone that they drafted back in 2020. He's played 3 years at the American League level now and kind of did break out last year. So I'm glad they decided to hammer out a deal and bring it back, because he did break out offensively last season. His first 2 years in the American League, he had 25 points in each of the seasons. And then last year, 40 points in 55 games. So kind of broke out last year. He's a young right shot defenseman. There's not a whole lot of those guys in the system. They haven't been able to develop a lot of those players. Whether or not he can kind of take that next step and become a regular NHLer, I guess we'll see. Typically, defensemen take a little bit longer. They season up in the American League a little longer than forwards do. So it's not uncommon to see 23-year-olds still playing in the American Hockey League, defenseman 23-year-olds. So there's still a chance he could be an NHL player here. I've always liked him as a prospect, right? We'll see if he can get a look. I think he played one game for did he play a game for the Leafs last year? Did he end up getting into a game? I think he got called up. I don't know if he ever actually played. No, it doesn't look like
I don't think he's made his NHL debut yet.
He has not. No, he has not. I thought maybe he got like an emergency call up or something one time, or there was like a paper transaction, but maybe I'm mistaking him for somebody else. But has yet to make his NHL debut. Bold prediction. We're gonna get to our bold predictions a little bit later on. Here's a little sneak peek. I think he makes his NHL debut this year, though. I think we see William Villeneuve. Like injuries always occur. And I think that,
Yeah.
you owe it to yourself to see what he is at 23. You get a couple injuries, which are bound to happen. Let's get a look at this guy. He's been in the organization for a bit. He's paid his dues. Let's get a look. I think that that's something we could totally end up seeing. And I would imagine that he has to be exposed to waivers at
He
this
does.
point now.
He's
So
no longer waiver eligible.
Yeah, so like another team even might want to take a peek and claim him and potentially, chuck him into the lineup and see what he could do. Young, 23 years old, right
I
shot.
can think of one.
Who's that? Oh, was this the Pittsburgh Penguins? Kyle Dubas's Pittsburgh Penguins, who did sign, draft William Villeneuve back in the day.
And wants to get, quote unquote, younger. Go after somebody.
Wow.
If it's not a Sault Ste. Marie guy, it's going to be a Leaf guy. We know that with Kyle.
I'll say this. So I was looking back at the Leaf, funny and just randomly, because he's part of the 2020 Leafs draft class. May have been one of the worst draft classes in like recent history for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They had a lot of picks. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 picks in that draft. This was the COVID draft. Remind you, the COVID draft where they were this close, making the inch mark for those who are listening, this close to that ball getting sucked up and them ended up, winning the Lafreniere sweepstakes. But last minute, that heavily weighted New York Rangers ball came and knocked it out of the way. And then the Rangers ball went up the tube and they got the number 1 pick. They've kind of wasted him. Anyways, besides the point. And the Maple Leafs ended up with the 15th pick, and Rodion Amirov ended up being that selection. Rest in peace. Obviously, very bad situation, unfortunate situation that happened with Rodion Amirov. Ended up, with cancer and passing away at a young age. So obviously, you don't expect that to happen. But that was the first round pick. Their second round pick, Roni Hirvonen. Roni Hirvonen was the second round pick. Topi Niemela was a third round pick. They just weren't able to get much of anything. And then Akhtiamov, okay, he's been a nice little piece. He's shown that he could be a decent goaltender for this team. He's over now, at least in North America, and has put up pretty good numbers. Last year, played 26 games with the Marlies, had a 281 goals against, but a couple of years back, he was real solid when he was playing over in Russia. And then Villeneuve was another selection here. Outside of that, I don't think any of these other players, Ovchynnikov, Miettinen, Rendell, Miller, John Fusco, like Ryan Tverberg, I think, is he still around? Did he end up coming back to the Leafs?
Still has he's still like with
QO, right? Yeah, they sent him a QO, I think, and they're just waiting. Similarly to Villeneuve, I suppose. But even him last year kind of took a step back, just 11 points in 46 games. So not a great draft when you look back on that one. And really, really, really unfortunate because, man, there was some good picks in that draft class. You talk about listicles. This might be one for us that actually we should do at some point, because I know the boys of Locked On Senators did this, like worst draft whiffs. And they took a look at, guys within 5 picks of after their team selected, like who are the worst draft whiffs. Do you remember when the Maple Leafs traded back? So they had pick 44 in that draft. They traded back with the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa came up and they took Tyler Klevin, and Toronto moved down and they were able to get Roni Hirvonen and Topi Niemela with the second and third round pick they got in return. At the time, I don't know if you recall this, but at the time, everyone was lauding that trade because both Hirvonen and Niemela were like high second round grades and they had fallen in the draft. Klevin kind of came out of nowhere and they were like, the Leafs did well with that pick. You know who went right after Tyler Klevin that the Maple Leafs could have, if they were just stayed where they were and made their selection at 44, you know who went next, who they could have took instead?
I do, and I get reminded about this all the time.
Yeah.
Brock Faber.
Brock Faber was the very, very next pick that
by the Kings. By the way, that pick was made by the Kings from the Oilers via the Detroit Red Wings.
So a few teams that could use a Brock Faber that gave up on the opportunity to own a Brock Faber. But also, like, they took Hirvonen, right? 59th overall. Will Cooley went next at 60th overall. Think they could use a Will Cooley right now. He's kind of exactly what this team could use and is looking for. What about Topi Niemelä? You know who went a few picks after Topi Niemelä? Alexander Nikishin, who's now in Carolina and is absolutely killed it when he was in the KHL over the last few years. 55 points, 56 points, 46 points. And this year, finally, Krok, came over and signed with Carolina at the end of the year, played 4 games for them throughout the playoffs and expected to be a big part of that blue line. Just 23 years old, 6'4", 215, terrific player. They let him go too.
This hurts.
That's what I mean, man. You look at this 2020 class. Again, we're talking hot takes in a moment, more so predictions, but one of the worst drafts in Maple Leafs
last
history.
5 years.
In the last 5, worst draft that they've had for sure in the last 5 years, but maybe in Leafs history. Although the Tyler Big Stu Percy draft that was pretty brutal too. Back in
I thought we were gonna be saving the misery for another episode. This is hurting right now.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm kind of curious, like who went after in the 4th? Okay, they did okay in the 4th. They took Akhtiamov in the 4th round, and no one has really played many games after that, I suppose. William Villeneuve, anyone come after him? Sean Farrell's played 6 games, but no one really at that point. Jacob Dobish actually went a pick before Dmitry Ovchinnikov, interestingly enough, in the 5th round. But yeah, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot that the Maple Leafs this is just a bad draft in general, honestly, because there's no one even like really all that lower in the draft that like really popped off. Like, I don't know.
Come on, man! Don't give it up for Matt Rempe,
Devin Levi, Neil Zaman, a 6th-round pick, has 130 games in the NHL. That's pretty good, actually. I think that leads all players outside of the 3rd round. Niels Iman leads, so good on him. Outside of the 2nd round, outside of Alex Laferriere, who just signed a pretty healthy ticket with the Kings. Yeah, really nice deal. Yeah. So in case everyone was wondering, I didn't expect for today to turn into a let's poop on the 2020 NHL draft class, but William Villeneuve made me look back. I was like, 2020. And I looked at the draft class. And I'm like, oh, God, such a bad draft. But if he can turn out to be a piece of this team, then at least they'll have someone from that draft class make it. Because right now, they don't have a single game played from that draft class that had double-digit draft selections, 0 games played. And it's been 5 years. That's pretty brutal.
Not good.
No, not good at all. And I think, honestly, William Villeneuve and I guess Artur Akhtiamov, like the 2 hopefuls, and they were both 4th-round selections to playing any games here. Yeah.
Not good to hear. Not good to hear.
It's not great. It's not great. No. You take a look at, like, Dubas's, like, last few years, it's not great. 2020, 0 games played. If you take Nick Robertson, if Nick Robertson gets traded, then 2019 draft class, 11 games played out of that draft class with 6 players drafted.
Oh my God.
Outside of Nyes, neither Voigt or Pexa have played a game for the 2021 class. 2022, okay, that was a decent season. Minton, Hildeby, Grabankin, 3 of the 5 players from that draft, so that one was okay. And then he was promptly let go prior to the 2023 draft class, if I recall. Anyways, let's get off that topic. On the other side, we'll get to our way too early predictions. Got some hot takes coming in next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday throughout the rest of the summer, leading you all the way to training camp. We will continue our daily coverage of your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. You can find the podcast wherever you get your pods, and you can also find us on YouTube. Subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. Helps the numbers, the algorithm, and also once we get to 10,000 subscribers, we're giving away a Leafs jersey. So make sure you sub up, be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Leafs podcast. All right, Dave, we are a couple of months away from the season starting, and probably what are we 6-ish weeks away from the start of training camp. We're not too far away from the start of camp, 6-7 weeks from camp. So I think it's time for us to kind of look toward the future a little bit. So let's go through and give me a way too early Maple Leafs prediction. You could, I don't know if you have multiple predictions, if you have like one hot take, one lukewarm take, but what do you think we see in 2025-26?
I think we see a little more Joseph Woll this year than we did the previous year in net. I think he starts to emerge more as the future starter for this Leafs team.
So what's the breakdown there? Do you think like a 50-32 split if everyone's healthy, or is it still going to be relatively like a 44-38 maybe instead?
Yeah, I think it's still going to be close. Like unless there's an injury to one of the two, I think they're still going to be close in starts. But it's also going to come to like the playoff time. And like Anthony Stolarz was lights out. This is nothing to do more about. Like Stolar's play was great, but we did see at some point it did kind of. It's hard. It was hard for him to sustain that, and in the playoffs, totally get it. He didn't leave. He didn't. No,
he's great.
Got suckered, right? Took the cheap shot.
Yeah, Sam Bennett, screw you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I just think Joseph Woll has the makeup to really take that next step. And I was when Matt Murray signed in Seattle, he did an appearance on 590, and like he pretty much gave like such a glowing review of Joseph Woll. He pretty much said like Toronto, they have got a real keeper there, in my opinion. Like he was so high on Joseph Woll, and it's hard not to be. Like we've seen the potential that he has.
He's got such a calming factor. Like he calms everyone down. And Stolarz, like I think Stolarz, he had an unbelievable season. I still think he's a great goaltender. Don't get me wrong. But just he doesn't play as calm in net. Like he's a little bit, a little more. I wouldn't call him chaotic, but there's a little more movement going on with Stolarz. But it seems like Joseph Woll, and I believe it was Max Domi who said like he's got a little Carey Price to him where he's just like big, technical, very little wasted movement. And if you're getting compared to Carey Price by your teammates, I mean, you're doing something right. So I think it's very plausible that we could see Joseph Woll kind of take over that number one goaltending position. That was the plan, I think, last year, and he got hurt before puck drop on opening night, missed the first game, and all of a sudden was Anthony Stolarz' net, and he never really looked back. Like there was that little blip he had. He also did get injured for a couple of weeks there, and Joseph Woll kind of took the net a little bit, but ultimately Woll was never able to wrestle it back from Stolarz. But if Joseph Woll can stay healthy, like he did when he returned from that injury. He didn't sustain another one the rest of the way. It was fairly healthy in the whole kind of back 3/4 of the season. He could definitely, churn out a 45 to 48 game season for sure, and really establish himself as the true 1A and Stolarz as the true 1B. For certain that could play out that way. Here's one for you. Here's what I believe. I think Easton Cowan plays more games for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season than Nick Robertson.
That I was wondering where you're going with this. Like, where's he going? I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's twofold, really. Like I I'm just not certain that Robertson's with this team the whole year. That's one. And I said this last summer too, and he ended up being with the team for the whole season. So, egg on my face if this turns out to be an incorrect take, but that's why it's a hot take early prediction. But I still believe, despite signing a contract extension with the Maple Leafs, I still think there's a chance that he could get traded, right? And I think if the right injury occurs throughout, training camp or leading up to it, and a team loses a top 6 forward or a middle 6 winger, and they need a little bit more scoring depth, they could come calling. And I think the Maple Leafs, as long as they get a middle round pick, 3, 4, 5, maybe a third, fourth, fifth round pick, maybe they come up with some sort of deal for another struggling prospect and 2 prospects who need a change of scenery. I think someone brought up, or maybe Elliot Friedman talked about Chinnikov, who asked for, to get out in Columbus. And I think Friedman said in his 32 Thoughts podcast, it would take more than just Nick Robertson, a 1-for-1, but something like that, where it's like, okay, Robertson could provide some value to a Columbus team who could use some extra depth scoring, and vice versa. Chinnikov, he wants out, so you could get something for it. You do have to give up maybe something along with him, obviously, but that's a big part of it. I think Easton Cowan finishes the year as a Maple Leaf. I'm not so certain of that of Nick Robertson, but I also think that Cowan, there's a chance that he could work his way into the Maple Leafs lineup at some point in the season. If he doesn't break out of training camp with the Leafs, I won't be upset. I won't be shocked. I actually expect him to start the year with the Marlies. But if he can learn those pro habits, I think he's a player that they kind of look and say, at some point, he could come in and fill a middle 6 role. He could come in and command more ice time than a Nick Robertson would. And even if Robertson's still on the team midway through the season and Cowan is on the team, when it comes to the guy who's going to get the tap on the shoulder to play that night, I truly believe it'll end up being Easton Cowan. Whether it's second, third, fourth line minutes, I think they look at him and they would have more, they would feel stronger that Cowan could do what is asked more so than Nick Robertson. So for me, I think Easton Cowan ends up with more games played than Robertson as a Maple Leaf this year.
Yeah, it's not the craziest take, I'll say that. Like Dale Hunter, they were asking him about, well, it's just funny when you hear Dale Hunter talk about just anything. He doesn't want to say a lot, but they did ask him, like, what do you think about Easton Cowan's chances in training camp? I think he has a chance to make the team, and the Leafs will be better for it. He's like, the Leafs at some point need to have younger guys compete.
Yeah,
for spots. And we started to see that a little bit, right? With Fraser Minton making the team. Like
Grbankin made the team at a camp last year, didn't he?
I think so. I can't honestly, I can't remember the Leafs opening night lineup last year. But like it takes when you're in this situation where you want to get the most out of players. You definitely need your young guys to give them a bit of a push, right? Just you also want to see some fruits of your development labor, right? Like all the work that you've put into making your your team, a championship team. You need to add in some younger players to it. So I'm just kind of looking right now. Don't see Grbankin on the opening day roster.
Yeah, no, maybe it was an opening night. But it didn't take them too long to get a call up. But anyway.
No, it didn't. That's the thing. Like they had some injuries. Even like Fraser Mint, I'm pretty sure started on the IR. He didn't start with the team right away. And eventually saw him his way down in the Marlies for most of the year. But they got a lot of players. Like I'm still expecting some sort of move. And that move might free up an opportunity for Easton Cowan.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're trading a Camp or a Järnkrok, that's one less forward, right? To be in camp there. So I do think it might not be the start of the season, but I do think at some point you're going to see Easton Cowan this year.
Yeah. I I can't for the life of me, Dave. Like you mentioned trading Calle Järnkrok. Why is Leafs Nation so quick to move Calle Järnkrok right now? Can you explain that to me? Like, are you part of that thought process?
I'm not totally on the trading him. I just think if there's a deal that makes sense, sure. Like I'm not giving away Calle Järnkrok for free.
But like, why? You don't think he's an effective part? He could be an effective fourth liner for this team. It's not like they're in a cap crunch. This is why I don't understand the discourse around people really trying to like. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, got to trade Järnkrok, got to trade Camp, like got to trade one of those. No, you don't have to trade either of them. First of all, you certainly don't have to trade Järnkrok. Like, I don't think Järnkrok's in the same boat as Camp. Like,
no, I think with Järnkrok, the injuries, not just last year but the year before, like his durability hasn't been there. And then that impacts where he is in the lineup, right? When you're not able to stay healthy, that impacts your everyday role, right? I think if he's healthy though, like we're talking about the Leafs struggling to have a top 6 right winger. Like it might be a little, some people might think I'm far-fetched to this, but like if he's coming into camp healthy and if he can get back to his form from a couple years ago.
Scored 20 goals. 20 goals his first year with the Maple Leafs.
It's not even the goal scoring. It's just his ability to play a sound game with. He played a good stretch with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
Yep.
Right? Yep. He can, like, we're not looking for Calle Järnkrok to come in and be a big time offensive contributor. But this team could really use a stabilizing presence in the middle 6. And the right wing spot, there is just not much there in terms of right wing options. That he actually has an advantage going into camp because he is a natural right winger. He doesn't have to play center. He ain't playing center with this team. They would have done it last year if that was.
They don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to. He's very, very far down the list. Like there'd be a few injuries before I think they get to that point. But even as a fourth liner, Dave, like I think you can definitely pencil that guy in as a fourth line right winger and be perfectly fine with it. Yeah. Like the Leafs aren't in a cap crunch. Like I know maybe this fan base is very much conditioned to thinking that you can't have a guy making $2 million on your fourth line. Well, you can if you're not, paying 4 guys $10+ million, and they're not anymore.
Yeah,
only paying 2 guys that. Right now, it's only 2 guys because Tavares took a nice little pay cut, and Marner's not here anymore. So it's Matthews and it's Nylander, and then they were able to kind of spread the money out throughout the rest of the lineup. Like this is the first time in, I don't even know how long, like 4, 5, 6 years maybe, that the team is going into training camp and they're not in a cap crunch, and it's like they're not even worried about it at all.
They have 24 players on this roster right now. And they haven't even signed the defensive that they got from San Jose.
Henry Thrun.
Like, that's not going to be a hard deal to get done. But like, there is going to be a deal coming. Somebody, like, they're not going to have all these guys.
I agree. I just don't think it's Järnkrok. Like, I think that there's a role. There's a role for him. Like,
yeah.
If we're talking about guys where they're like redundant, I think David Kampf is very redundant at this point. He's lost his penalty killing duties, and he's lost, his position down the middle of the ice. Like both Nick Waugh and Scott Laughton are now firmly ahead of him, and he's the 5th center on the depth chart. So it's like, okay, what do you do for me, right? You're not going to play center on this team, and you're not going to kill penalties for me anymore. All right, we can move on from you. You are redundant. The next on the list is Nick Robertson. And then maybe you get to Calle Järnkrok, and you can even, I'd be willing to have a conversation that Max Domi might be even more redundant and a guy I think that the Leafs could move off of ahead of Calle Järnkrok. It's not saying that Järnkrok's a better player, but I think he fits a role better with this team and with Craig Berube more so than Max Domi does. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just it's discourse that I just don't quite understand why everyone's so quick to write off Calle Järnkrok as if he He's not one of the least best 12 forwards. He certainly is. He certainly is. He
and he
can
was
play
also,
up the lineup. Worst case scenario, he can move up and down your lineup. He can play. He can. He is versatile as much as you don't want him to play center. Can in a pinch, he can play on your second power play. He can kill penalties. He's a fine player. Like, he's not a great player, but he's a fine player. You stick him on the fourth line. How good was that Lorentz, Lawton, Järnkrok line in the playoffs? They're excellent. Good pace line.
They do score. If they found a way to score
they had chances. They had a lot of chances. They just couldn't bury. But, like, law of averages, eventually some of those should go in. But ultimately, I don't care if my fourth line, scores a whole lot. I just don't want them to get scored on. And unfortunately, when Nick Robertson's on the ice, A, he's taking too many penalties. B, he's getting scored on. Järnkrok, at least, cannot take penalties and won't get scored on. So I would prefer Järnkrok be on this open night lineup and form that fourth line with Lawton and Lorentz, and away we go. He's not someone I'm looking to push out the door. That's for sure. So maybe there's another bold prediction. Calle Järnkrok finishes the year as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah, it'll be. I can't wait to see what things are going like heading into camp. If they have the same number of forwards now than they do going into camp, it's gonna be some serious competition for playing time, because you can't keep everybody.
Yeah. There will be a trade. There will be one.
Yeah.
But you get a few names deep before I think you get to Järnkrok. All right, Dave. We'll end the show there. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs on Twitter and on Instagram. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. Maybe we'll look back at another draft class and be upset about the whiffs. We should do that. Actually, we should do that for Friday. That listicle. Biggest draft whiffs of the last 25 years for the Maple Leafs. You want to do it?
Let's do it.
All right.
We've already started opening up ripping off the Band-Aid. Might as well just continue with it.
Absolutely. I'd imagine that the Brock Faber one will land on the list somewhere as one of the worst ones. So we'll continue with that list, and we'll take a peek at the last 25 or so years of the Maple Leafs draft history and see how many whiffs they've had with great players coming shortly after that selection. So we'll get to that on Friday. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.